Espinosa with Just Wish Foundation. Today we are joined by Michelle Lee, co-founder and president of Very Asian Foundation, whose mission is to shine a light on Asian experiences through advocacy and celebration. Thanks so much for joining us on Just Wish Foundation, Michelle.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. I'm so excited for this chat. So let's talk about how Very Asian as an organization and as a movement started out. So you're a celebrated, multi-awarded St. Louis-based news anchor. And on New Year's Day back in 2022, you wrapped up a segment on holiday food during a newscast. And you said something that struck a chord, particularly with one viewer. Tell us what you said during the newscast.
Okay. Well, you know how it is also working in that space. It was a reader. It was a 25-second reader about what Americans eat on New Year's Day and why. And at the very end, I just said I had dumpling soup because that's what a lot of Korean people do. Anyway, moving on. It was very and it was single banter because it was a single anchored show. So I was just, haha, move on. And this woman called later and said, in the voicemail that's now collected on email and sent out to all the managers and everybody, said, hey, your Asian anchor was talking about what Asian people eat. And I kind of take offense to that because what if a white person said what they ate? They'd be fired.
Hi, this evening your Asian anchor mentioned something about being Asian and Asian people eat dumplings on New Year's Day, and kind of take offense to that, because what if one of your white anchors said, well, white people eat this on New Year's Day? I don't think it was appropriate that she said that.
And it just kind of went on and said she was being very Asian. She needs to keep her Korean to herself. She needs to talk about what white people eat. And it was very annoying. So it just kind of went on and on. It's because you work I work in television. I timed it, and I was like, wow, her message, her complaint was twice as long as the actual story. But I shared.
And you never expected that kind of reaction from
because it was so quick. It was so quick.
Yeah.
And to me, it just kind of put me really over the edge because we had just moved back from the West Coast. We came back during the height of the pandemic after my mom died. I was coming home because we needed help with our kiddo. My dad definitely needed help. It just felt like coming home was the right thing to do, but it also, we were at a really vulnerable time in our lives, because my mom and all these things. And so I was like, my goodness, to come back to my home state and to hear this 40, however old I was, 43, 42 years old at the time, to still hear that same crap, 6 months after I got into my home state, I was just really angry and depressed, about it. I was like, God, who are these people? And so, and I also started thinking, is my son going to have a hard time growing up here?
Yeah.
And so I shared a video of me listening to the voicemail, and then it went viral. And I mean, when I say viral, not just it went viral all around the world. It was a slow news day. It was January 1st, So the hashtag Very Asian started trending because my friend Gia, who's a news anchor in the Bay Area, she wrote that she, guess she was being very Asian too. And she talked about a Hmong tradition and Hmong foods. And then that went viral, and so we made Very Asian shirts. We raised about $20,000 for the Asian American Journalists Association. Then Ellen called, and Ellen asked me to be on her show.
Ellen DeGeneres, yes.
Yeah. So then I went on her show, and then Ellen gave me money, and so then I was like, we're going to take that money and we're going to use that as seed money to start the foundation. And so we just celebrated 2 years, which is crazy. Yeah.
So social justice advocate Dr. Sherry Wang, I think he called it so powerful, this Very Asian movement, if you will, so powerful that it has turned a racial insult into a collective Asian pride. What can you say about that?
That was my favorite tweet. I saved it. I use it all the time when I talk to people. in, in presentations or whatever, because it was so powerful. For 2 years, we were saying, please respect us. Please don't hurt us. Please don't attack us. Please don't murder us. Whatever it was. Please, in defense of us, please don't hurt us. And for like a moment in time, we said, you know what? We are hashtag very Asian and we're proud of it. And it was really a celebratory thing, that turned into this really wonderful. I think Ellen called it we sparked a global moment of unity.
Yeah.
Like it was something like that, we didn't, but the hashtag did.
Yeah.
And also there was so much solidarity, from other communities. Also, there are so many multiracial, multi-ethnic, folks out there. And so the idea that we can be very Asian and we can be very something else.
Yeah.
And also because my son is multiracial, also because I'm an adoptee, I'm also an immigrant, all these other things that make us up who we are, make us who we are. And this idea that we would let someone, I guess, bring us down, so it was really powerful, I think, to hear other
or feel
people's
ashamed
stories.
of our traditions, feel ashamed of our, what makes us us. And I think that at that time, Michelle, it was so critical too, because at the height of COVID,
Yes,
crimes against Asians
exactly.
were at an all-time high. And you think it was so important that this movement came about at a time when we were most vulnerable,
Right.
or most attacked.
100%. And the interesting thing was, living on the West Coast at the time, I was in Seattle. I love Seattle. It is like one of my favorite places I've ever lived. And we had my son there. It was like just so many great, wonderful things happened in my life. But it was also the first city to report COVID in the US. And so everything shut down, everything changed like overnight. And not only that, but a city like Seattle, where the majority minority is Asian, and it was always it is a proud city, right? But I was so afraid to walk in the Chinatown International District. I was afraid to go downtown. I was afraid to go out. And I needed to take my son out because we were living in this 900 square foot house. We needed to get out because we were home all day. And so I really panicked because I was thinking, if something happens to me, what's going to happen to my son? Like, say I get attacked, because people were getting attacked. What if someone attacks me?
Yeah.
What's going to happen to my son? And then worse, what if someone attacks my son and me? Because there were incidents where little kids were getting attacked. That happened in Texas for sure, at a Walmart. So, and being in the news, everything. It seems like everything that's going on, And so I just was really absorbing all of this really heavy news. So it was like you had, in St. Louis, I wasn't necessarily afraid of being assaulted, but there was still a lot of political rhetoric in Missouri that was different than Washington State. That made it kind of unbearable. Like, there were times when I wouldn't get served, which I was like, am I imagining this?
Wow.
But it happened enough where I was like, that is actually something. I can't say that it was racism, but I'm not getting served. That's weird.
Yeah.
I got accused of shoplifting. There were just like things that I was like, where am I?
Yeah.
So
in this day and age.
Yes.
Wow.
So neither city was really great, at the time, because Seattle, I was physically worried about my safety. St. Louis, I was more afraid of like just not being treated as an equal. I mean, either or, you're not getting treated as an equal. So it was just a really intense time. And we were all at the height of that, when we went viral.
And that was really that very Asian feeling. That very Asian, what sparked this movement, this worldwide thing. It's really was very much needed at that time.
I think so too. Yeah. And can I just say one thing? I'm sorry, Penny. The one thing that I think is really important as Americans, especially, and I'm again, like, I'm a naturalized citizen, but it's the idea of like, I don't live in Korea, right? I wasn't raised in Korea. So even when I go back to Korea, Korean people know that I'm an American. And so for me, um, any type of like cultural thing that I've done in my life, it is because I have taken the time, or my family or my loved ones have taken the time to teach it to me. You know, I'm not going to school and being inundated with Korean culture. So to me, I always try to make clear that like we all have work to do, and we all are doing work whenever we're connecting to our heritage, even if it's a Polish festival or an Irish festival, right? Like we live in America, so our lives look different than our counterparts in our maybe our first countries. And so for someone to judge you, you know, when you know you're working so hard to honor all of you, you know, all of yourself, and when someone, you know, criticizes you or attacks you based on just simply this at this point, your looks, it feels so isolating and sad, you know. And so yeah, the Very Asian thing was so exciting because I think a lot of people felt a lot of pride to be able to share who they really were and really are.
But even before, you know, starting the Very Asian Foundation, you were already championing Asian causes, right? I mean, you have done a lot with, particularly with adoptees, through your the heritage camps and volunteer tours to Korea. You also launched a program to support, you know, children in foster care in Missouri. Why has giving back to the community been always so important for you?
You know, well, thanks for saying that. Because I think as humans are always trying to do that, right? We're always trying to make the places that we live a little bit better. If we have that as a privilege, you know, if we have that opportunity to do that. But as a journalist, and as you know, we're here to represent our communities. We're here to tell stories of marginalized people. We're here to make change. And so at the very core of what I do in my day job, you know, it's to report stories we haven't heard before. It's to report stories that need to be heard so that there can be positive change and actionable change. And so that's how I've always lived my first career. And, you know, to me, it's like, I feel like for so long, I wasn't telling enough stories that like resonated with me personally, because maybe I was told or discouraged from sharing something that could lend a bias, you know. But I carry a bias as a woman. I carry a bias as a mom, you know, I carry a bias as a Midwesterner or whatever. So I'm a reporter for everybody. I'm a journalist for all. But do I know a little something about being a mom? Yeah. Is that going to help me tell a better story? Yeah, probably. You know, and so that's, I think, being in that Asian American lens, I think that also is true. Like, I'm an Asian American person. I go out in the street. It doesn't matter if people know that I have an adoption background or what. They're going to treat me a certain way because they see me a certain way, you know? So, so telling those stories, I think, from that lens is important.
Yeah. And giving really the marginalized communities, the people who have been voiceless for so long, giving them that platform to talk about their stories and to tell the stories, like you said, from our own people, then that really should bring about change that's been needing for so long. So,
and you know, yes, and we're, you know, not a monolith. We all have different experiences. And then even if we are skin folk, you know, we still have our each individual, you know, point of views. And I look at my friend Gia, you know, who's in the Bay Area. She's like the first Hmong American woman to reach a top like television market, you know.
Wow.
Think about how many people, I mean, I know very few Filipino Americans who are, you know, working in mainstream media. I know very few adoptees who are working in mainstream media. You look at like some of the top, you know, 20 markets, they're still in many of our big markets, there's still only like 1 or 2 Asian people in those cities. And so I say, well, you know, you have to ask yourself, who's taking an interest in Asian American stories?
Yeah.
You know, and if an Asian American person is not there, then who's telling the story, right?
Yeah.
And so you hope everyone has empathy and all that stuff. It's not like you necessarily have to have a representative of a certain thing or group or person to do a good story. But my goodness, like we still don't have representation like so many other people across the board.
but just for two powerful women coming together, Gia and yourself. I mean, you have Michelle. You have a National Peabody Award. You have four national Murrows. You have multiple regional Emmys. I mean, you're a celebrate journalist, and Gia as well. And for you guys to come together to form Very Asian Foundation, tell us about the goals when you guys started out and how you were able to achieve those goals based on your various programs.
Oh my gosh. Well, again, thank you so much for the kindness, kind words. We always say we're still very much a work in progress, building the plane as we're flying it and all those things. But one thing that we decided, as journalists founded, that we would shine a light on Asian experiences through advocacy and celebration. Shining a light is what shining a light is what journalists do. We're shining a light on stories. We left it as Asian experiences because we were having not only Asian Americans, but Asian Canadians, Asian Germans, Asian Australians reaching out to us with very similar experiences. And then also advocacy is a no-brainer. Celebration is a no-brainer given how we formed. And so, we've always tried to do our programming based on solving a problem or attempting to solve a problem, because there are a lot of groups out there, and they all have really specific things, but we as journalists cover everything. So we started our May Book Project based on students who came to us and said, hey, we have this problem. Can you help us? Can you help us get seen in our schools? So we got a cohort of experts together and we built this project. The same thing with our Creators Grant, which helps creatives get a little bit of funding, but a lot of confidence in terms of like going out into the world and pivoting. And that was based on a doctor in Seattle who pivoted to baking. So those are things that we do. And I don't know where that necessarily leads us, because now we have two pretty robust programs, and I'm like, I don't know if we could add another program on our list. But we also raise money for other foundations, other organizations, try to support people where we can, and we're growing, so we're going back and forth with becoming sustainable, trying to find sustainability, and then also supporting other groups as well.
So it's really also investing in the youth, right? A lot of this is really empowering them, building really the foundation for that pride, for that cultural identity. You tackled also, and you've been really, putting in the time to talk to the youth when it comes to dealing with challenges, because suicide is the number one cause of death for Asian American youth. So what is your group doing to address this, and you personally?
Oh, sure. Well, and that I think is another item where that is a headline, right? That's a news story. So now we have this information. What do we do with it? And frankly, the May Book Project is literally an Asian American youth literature project for all readers, but it stemmed from students who said, hey, a group of us tried to get 12 schools to buy more books for our library so we could see ourselves during the height of the pandemic for the month of May, and no one responded. Now, I know a lot of people at the schools that they worked with, so I know they're good educators, but during that time, no one responded. And so many of these kids, I shouldn't say kids, young people said how it greatly impacted their mental health to be invisible at the school where it mattered most, and then to be hyper visible in public, in the community, going to the grocery store, literally getting called a bad eater. Go back to your country, speak our language, all this stuff happening all around the country. And so then these students started talking about self-harm, suicide, mental health resources. And some of them had talked about making suicide plans. We also had, some students who were impacted by suicide not very long after that. So I'm not saying that books solve the problems. I mean, you're going to have long-term solutions for mental health and mental awareness, but you also have to train therapists. They have to go to school, so it's a really big commitment. We have held a lot of panel discussions in the community with mental health experts. We've also worked with this student group, and they do a lot of mental health work inside the community, and especially with people who might be immigrants. But, it is a long-term project. I do like the books because it kind of gives this immediate tangible thing that
Yeah.
everybody can do and everybody can learn from. If you're doing mirrors and windows, like everyone needs to read a book
Yeah.
about a character that doesn't look like them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, so that's one way we fight it, I think, specifically, but also all the other work that we're doing
Yeah.
outside by supporting, our mental health workshops or whatever.
Yeah. With your band of volunteers and also with community partners, where do you hope to take Very Asian Foundation, moving forward?
I don't even know. Right now it's like it's a full-time job, but it's not a full-time job
Yeah.
because we already have full-time jobs.
Yeah.
So, I want it to go where people also want it to go, because I never felt like this was my vision. This was a response. I like to say meeting a moment. We're always challenged to meet moments.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like meeting a moment and meeting people where they are and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that I have boundaries as a journalist, so we're not going to jump into any political bandwagons or anything like that. And I do want to be fair for everyone, and I do want to build community with everyone. But I want to be Asian centric. And so, how that grows, I'm not super sure. I definitely feel like one thing that, time and time again, as a journalist, as you're moving from market to market throughout your career, and I've lived in the Southeast, the Upper Midwest, the Pacific Northwest, the South, we don't see enough representation in our own communities. We tend to think, honestly, of the West Coast and the East Coast, but there's so many other states somewhere in the middle. And if we don't see ourselves as main characters in our own communities, then as we move through life, we will forget about us as main characters, right? I mean, I always joke, there are some really, Fortune 500 companies in St. Louis. We've got Anheuser-Busch, we've got Purina, we've got Enterprise. And my thing is, those are great companies, but I'm just saying, like, what if you grow up in St. Louis and you never knew about the Chinatown that was here for 100 years, or you never knew about the Philippine Village that was part of the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis and the damage it did, or if you never learned about all these important historical things, also positive things as well, because like Washington University in St. Louis said, we don't believe in internment camps, and they saved so many folks, and then they became, successful and wonderful people in the community. But if you don't know that there are incredible stories in your own hometown, then you might go through life and become a CEO of a big company and not understand the importance of diversity and belonging, and because you never experienced it, right? And so I just feel like we have to be able to see ourselves not just, in one movie once a year. We need to see ourselves at school, at work, at church, all these other elements that really
in leading
impact our daily lives.
Important roles.
Yes,
not just in the background, and take ownership and take pride in that, and not feel shame that I'm asserting myself. And I think what's so inspiring about you and Chia is that you women are really bosses in your own career, and you're using your platform to really inspire the young people to also be bosses of their own lives.
Oh, wow.
Their culture included, their culture highlighted. And for us at Just Wish Foundation, we're just so honored. Me personally, since I'm a journalist, I look up to you. And G, I can only wish I could achieve what you guys have achieved, but
oh my gosh,
I really am inspired to do more myself. And I hope that with community partners like Just Wish Foundation, I hope that you guys reach more people, reach more young people especially, and really keep that movement, keep that very Asian sense of pride going and spread to more people, not just in the US, but all over the world. And we salute you, Michelle.
Thank you.
More power to Very Asian Foundation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.